us now go on to the next phase of our workshop. And yes, I want to greet the head of this institute. Yes, we have Engineer Jorge Javier Jimenez Alcaraz of INIFED. He's here with us now. Let us give the floor now to Dr. Sergio Alcocer to continue with our session, our workshop. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's continue. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I want to say good afternoon to all the panelists, everyone who has made us reflect on different aspects and the strategies, for instance, and how to increase resilience and sustainability in education education infrastructure. That is, let us now go on to the general conclusions of this virtual workshop that's taking place internationally. Yes, the presentation. Let me remind each and every one of you about the objectives of this workshop. The first objective, was to know international experiences on the improvement of structural security, as well as the increase of resilience and sustainability for education infrastructure. This is something we spoke about the first day. This is the 24th. The second objective was to disseminate results and progress made in projects developed in Mexico, most of them sponsored by the INIFED, on the retrofitting and the different assessments done on retrofitting of education facilities. This is something we discussed yesterday, and today's objective was to identify the different activities to be developed for us to have a national strategy in Mexico to increase resilience and sustainability of education facilities in our country. And just to give you a very quick summary, we had 8 invited lecturers from Colombia, the United States, Italy, Portugal, and Taiwan, and Canada, of course. And we had 16 conferences with 3 round tables for each one of those days. And just to give you concrete information on the participants on February 24th, yes, this is what we had. Doctor, you have the floor now for this summary. The first day, we had the participation of renowned participants from all over the world in this first international virtual workshop. Dr. Wan from Taiwan, from the National Research Center and Seismic Engineering, Dr. Derlin from the United States, he teaches at Stanford University, Dr. Fonseca from Portugal, a specialist advisor of the World Bank, Dr. Pamponi from Italy, from the University of Rome, Zavala from Peru, from the Peruvian Japanese Center on Disaster Research, and Arguenta from Colombia. She also participated, and she's an international consultant. They shared their very valuable experiences on design and of programs on resilience of infrastructures in Taiwan, the United States, and Kyrgyzstan, Italy, New Zealand, Peru, and Colombia. As of their presentations that were quite interesting, we can highlight the relevance and the development and the analysis, which is a comprehensive analysis of school infrastructure based on technical, economic, and social aspects to have appropriate prioritization of those retrofitting processes in terms of the improvement of school infrastructure. We said this has to be based on empirical data, information, and scientific information as well. We emphasize the importance of getting the school community in decision making, of course, and the negative effects of self-construction and lack of enhancements. This is something we mentioned, and this is has to do with something that has to be related to local practices. Very well. As conclusions, we can say that we spoke about a national strategy to improve the situation of schools. This should be medium term, a little bit over 10 years, taking comfort, sustainability, and resilience, and also safety of the buildings, all this into account. And this should be done based on technical criteria. Among them, for instance, we have to have investment efficiency, long-term losses, social, economic losses, target population that's being protected, marginalized areas that need our support, and the enhancement strategy with the mandatory characteristics that are necessary, and they have to be harmonized and uniform strategies, and management and transparency, the right follow-up process in getting the school community and local authorities involved and engaged, and all the other sectors in the decision-making process to oversee this enhancement strategy, and leaving the application to structural engineers. This is up to them. This is very important for them to be able to do their work because they are the expert, and incentivize. Well, we have seen disincentivize self-construction in schools. We have seen very concrete cases, and we have to have this improvement strategy, including school buildings in zones with the highest danger or hazard of natural disasters. The participation in the design of everyone. This is also very important. The manuals and guides. We have to be developing manuals and guides for those strategies, and some of them have already been developed. Perhaps we have to come up with other guides and training for everyone involved. And this is also very important. And the establishment of criteria, evaluations, assessments according to scope and cost-effective technologies. This is also very important, cost-effective in terms of social benefits and long-term benefits as well. And also retrofitting of buildings according to local practices, incremental measures to take advantage of vacation periods and holiday periods for this works to take place. Digital repositories according to the needs of each one of the schools, and for everyone to access those repositories, for private schools to have a fiscal incentive mechanism, and take advantage of research and development projects to support enhancement strategies. That would be the first day. Now, the second day, Gabriela, you have the floor for that. Thank you so much. The second day, we had very important contributions by Dr. Ildefonso González, Renato Barron, David Murià, Dr. Sergio Alcocer with his team of the Institute also participated, Janelle Valenci, Santiago Rodriguez. We also heard from them. It was a very important day, a day of local information about the country. And we also had the participation of Eduardo Gutierrez of the Colima Institute, Rafael Navas from the state of Mexico, Jorge Alcocer representing the Guerrero Institute, and Adolfo Maldonado from Oaxaca. Generally, then, we had a very broad participation on the maintenance of the facilities, the population situation, infrastructure affected by the 2017 earthquake, and the development of tools like the National Information System and the archive for national diagnosis. In Mexico City, we defined a formal process for structural reviews and revisions at the schools, prioritizing areas with seismic activity. In terms of the quality uniformity of data from the surveys, we said this was still very poor. We recognize that we don't have the right methodology. We've developed tools to analyze damage and rehab process, and very different experiences from parts of Mexico and the harmonizing of information. Sometimes we don't have harmonized or heterogeneous information, therefore this makes things more difficult. We spoke about criteria, guidelines, and guides with standardized protocols to detect and assess damage, and also consolidating information banks with structural information, data, the number of occupants, and the hazards of those risk indexes, and improving supervision and control processes, especially in terms of the quality of construction works, uniform quality, and sanctions, and promoting the use of technologies to increase resilience and sustainability of the different communities through solar panels and different resources and seismic devices. At the same time, we said how important it was to train and certify a very big number of inspectors on damages, and to do an assessment of structural conditions of all the school buildings and assess different financing schemes, and also design problems at the national level to have the participation of local authorities, and also to have the participation of education facilities to create synergies and the participation of civil protection. This was Thursday, the second day. Let us now go on to the third day, which is today. Please. Thank you so much. Today we had very interesting attendance, 832 the first day yesterday, 785 today, 713. It has been over 700 every day. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this workshop. This shows the interest everyone has on discussing this very interesting issues. Today, we had the participation, as we know, of Dr. Sayala Ramirez and Ordaz and John Shestovitov. Yes, thank you so much. They have made wonderful presentations. The World Bank also spoke about its experience and the different projects that they are doing and things we can do in Mexico. We heard about very important experiences in Canada, everything they are doing there. And we also heard from Dr. Ordaz in the last presentation that had to do with issues to be covered in the near future, especially in terms of information and decision making. Today, we heard about the importance of implementing performance design methodologies and to have resilient and sustainable buildings to recover functionality with everything we establish, and also stimulating the use of technologies of innovation for an efficient retrofitting, and also making decisions based on knowledge and the implementation of incremental programs through many success stories in other parts of the world with the assistance of the World Bank that is making great contributions for this. We also heard about the importance of crossing information and also the participation of experts, not only in terms of design, but also the formulation of the cost-benefit analysis and this type of methodology for us to have greater efficiency in the use of resources. We also learned about the importance of prioritizing interventions through cost-benefit analysis, incorporating the cost of future damage, and the importance of those opportunities and optimizing transfer mechanisms to transfer risk, of course, using the digital tools. The conclusions and recommendations. First of all, I believe that it is clear that we require to have a champion on those issues. This is something we discussed in this workshop, increasing safety, resilience, and sustainability at the highest level possible. We saw this in Taiwan, the first conference of this workshop, and we heard it once more with what happened in Kyrgyzstan. And just recently today, our friend from British Columbia spoke about experiences and projects they have had. It is clear that if we don't have a champion at the highest government level, this type of program will simply having efforts that are not well articulated. We need this government champion. It's very important to explore different collaborations with colleagues of other countries to adopt different actions. I think this is just the initiation of our learning process. Let us continue deepening our experiences and sharing our experiences through the contact, listening to each other, and having this type of performance design, which is basic for the retrofitting of existing buildings as well as for the construction of new buildings. This has to do with the technical assistance of the World Bank. We thank you for it, for us to implement this national design to improve the seismic behavior of school buildings. It's also recommended to develop tools and documents of assessment before and after, as well as the design of the types of schools that our Canadian friend told us about, to do the decision-making, taking into account cost-benefit analysis, and establish parametric insurance for the education buildings and other risk analysis, to have the active participation of different sectors in the design, education, and follow-up of this, as referred to by some of the speakers, in terms of the participation of the principals of schools, teachers, and students, and of course, parents of those children. Everyone is co-responsible for this, and looking into available information on the schools to decide whether we have to enhance the situation of the construction at the macro level for the stock or the portfolio we have. I think we have enough information for that. However, we don't have enough information at the local level. This is something we have to know what to do with each one of the individual buildings, especially public schools. We have thousands of them in Mexico, and this has to do with what we have to eradicate, self-construction. Very well, organizing meetings with local authorities of education infrastructure. This meeting should be taking place regularly to share experiences and to agree on guidelines. This is very important. And we also have to develop standards for the assessment and rehab or retrofitting of existing buildings of schools, insisting that decisions, implementation of the retrofitting and maintenance plans have to be carried out with technical criteria by experts on this. And I remember the comment we heard the beginning of this meeting: when someone has a heart problem, you don't just go see an orthopedist or a neurologist, you go to the cardiologist if you have a heart problem. And this is exactly what we should do here in Mexico. We should resource to experts, structural engineers, people who have specialized on these problems. And finally, I think that an important lesson that we heard about, and this is something we have heard, especially from our Canadian friend, says that we have to do teamwork with people from the academy and with the authorities. We cannot just be doing this alone. Our efforts are not enough when they're done individually. You have to work in a very coordinated fashion with a champion in the government, even better. And the Mexican Academy is more than ready to do this. And I want to conclude my intervention on this occasion with two announcements. The first one is the attendance certificates that will be sent to your email as of the registry of participants that we have. And we are going to be sending you from the National Autonomous University. You will be getting this PDF document in your email once we have all this in the computer. I also want to take advantage of this opportunity to thank different instances: the National Institute of Physical Education Infrastructure, Claudio Trejo, Dania Salamanca, the General Director of Information and Communication Technologies, Mr. Héctor Benítez, Director General, José Luis Rodríguez, Wilfrido Vázquez, the Engineering Institute of UNAM, Rubén Bautista, Mercedes Gallardo, Amalia García, Yainevi Martinez, Janela, and different associations that are partnering with us in these events. We want to thank them for all their support, and we want to thank everyone, the Architects College and CEMEX, the National Autonomous University, and of course, very important, we want to thank the participation of our interpreters who have done magnificent work throughout these 3 days of this international: Lilia Rubio, who heads this, always wonderful work, and her colleague Antonio Parra. Yes, and this is a summary of the workshop that we have here. And yes, and let us now go on to the next item of the agenda. This is the presentation of the documents that have been prepared in collaboration with INIFED. And we want to let you formally know about these documents. If you are interested, you can download the documents, and if you can do a screenshot, you can do it. You can do it through the INIFED website or page, an internet, and also the Resiliencia Sísmica. This is the National Autonomous University web space or site. Very fast, I want to share with you on the screen. This is just a very fast analysis of what these documents contain and the importance of having these documents in the country. As already pointed out in Dr. Murià's presentation, one of the lessons we learned with the 2017 earthquakes in Mexico is that we needed to have a post-seismic evaluation methodology to see what was happening in our school facilities and also in hospitals and commercial establishments. The importance of this is that we need to communicate, to tell society exactly what conditions their buildings are in after an earthquake. If their building is safe, if their building can be lived in. If not, what are we going to do with that building? If it's damaged, then we have to decide what to do with it. This consists of a very consistent methodology throughout the country. We don't have that yet. And once we make the decision of retrofitting a building, we have to do it with sound engineering criteria. And the purpose of having worked in this was to inform and to communicate our information to do this. And this, of course, has to do with the risk of management for this cycle. This is the case of an earthquake. This is the graph that I showed in my presentation. These products are designed to be applied in immediately after the occurrence of a seismic phenomenon. And this is the first level to answer the question, what to do with a building. The second level, days after the earthquake, not the first moment, days after the earthquake, those that were classified in yellow or red would have to do this, and they would have to identify if people can go on living in the building.
In such a way that those buildings that can be retrofitted can be done using these criteria. The first two are included in the methodology, and what is in green, it refers to what was included in the technical guidelines to retrofit school buildings. That is, in the first two levels, we intend to resolve these questions. Can we use this building or not? The answers are yes or no, or in the case there are questions, it's yellow. We have to apply these methodology hours and days after the earthquake in the quake evaluation method, and in the intermediate evaluation method, we're talking about months later, in such a way that we can take the decision to retrofit this structure or not. This is a very quick review of the schools, not going inside the schools, but walking around it to let the population know about what the safety status of the buildings is. In the second level of the evaluation, we do go in and we take simple measurements of people of the building to take some calculations. And once we take the decision to retrofit the school, then we need to figure out how we're going to do that, adding walls or adding metallic components. And in these 1 and 2 levels, we developed 3 documents. Volume 1, which is the methodology itself, the volume 2, which is complementary to the methodology that can aid as a textbook for structural design, and a field manual that translate the methodology into a simple document that can be used in the field. The 4th document is the technical retrofitting guide itself. And let's talk about the methodology briefly. This is the cover of the methodology. It has 228 pages with more than 100 images, which was reviewed by 25 people, 25 colleagues who have surveyed for damages at INIFED. Donatio Balanzario, for example, may he rest in peace. He participated and shared many interesting ideas in this document. And while this document was done with all the necessary rigor, it was important to have a review by those who will use it in the future. In purple, we see the description of the methodology with some other support chapters to assess the structures. Again, we have this classification with different colors: green for buildings that can be used, restricted access, yellow, and forbidden access in red, which doesn't mean that the building is going to be demolished, but rather it means that retrofitting is needed. It is possible for a red label to become a retrofitted building. So red does not mean that it's going to be demolished. We developed formats because the ones that we had in the country were quite deficient, and these formats, thanks to the support of our reviewers, now have the necessary level of information without taking too much time. We wanted the evaluation of the surrounding area of the school to take 10-15 minutes. On average, the entire evaluation of the school should take 45 minutes. Green labels would not go into the Fonden review because those review timetables are very strict, and that timetables can now be used in green labels and red labels. The document has tables and images, real photos of damaged buildings, schools in particular in our country. They also have a set of tables with color codes to make the interpretation of the different aspects in the evaluation easier. The methodology allows us to implement training programs for damage inspectors, which we don't have in this country, or we didn't have. Of course, not everyone understands the same thing. The concepts may vary and their understandings of the people may vary. Here we have some examples of images that we included, that we developed ourselves in the document to point out the type of damage that we can expect in a concrete structure. The field manual translates the methodology into 122 pages, and in this case, 28 reviewers participated, among which we had members of the engineering and architectural industries. In 12 chapters, we have different colors indicating their topic. It also allows us to know the place we are in the manual according to the chapter. And we also have images like the one that I'm pointing out here regarding the aspects to be reviewed and evaluated in the exterior of the building. You might not see in this picture, but there was a leaning post or a set of flowcharts and images indicating how to cordon off a building in case the building shows any potential hazard, and some information about geology and in this case the characteristics of hillsides in case schools are on the foothills of these structures. And we also include some damages, examples of damages in foundations, and we even have a chapter with first aid. It is not an intention for the damage inspection brigade to become a first aid brigade, but in case there is an accident, they will now know what to do. These documents have this second volume, which is a complementary volume, 178 pages with more than 200 images that was reviewed by 9 peers, where we present graphically the types of failures that concrete structure or steel or masonry structures, prefabricated structures can have, diaphragm walls, etc. That is not just limited to schools, but rather a concrete structure fails, even if it's not a school, it can fail if it's a hospital or an office building. So this is a document that can be very useful for any structural design and structural integrity subject in any school. We add some photographs of damages linked to foundation damage, liquefaction, hillside mudslide, and the fourth of the documents is the technical retrofitting guide, 284 pages with more than 200 images in which was reviewed by 19 peers, specifically from the professional practice industry. And this document is directed to all people involved in the evaluation and analysis, design, construction, review, and supervision of retrofitting projects. And it's mandatory for all of the buildings in the Mexican school system, private and public. 9 chapters that follow the order in which we carry out the retrofitting of a building, hmm, initial considerations, the structural analysis, the design, the different retrofitting techniques that can be used, and we finish with durability, construction, and quality assurance criteria. In this slide, you can see the 15 technical topics that refer to the retrofitting techniques: local repair, a crack repair, replacement of elements, addition of concrete walls, all the way to the retrofitting of the foundation. For each one of these topics, we have similar content that allows the users, engineers, and architects to know the different aspects that they need to comply with, referring to the standards for new buildings, pointing out the sections that apply to new buildings. Not all the criteria for new building design are applicable to existing buildings. The technical guide has, as I mentioned, more than 200 images like the ones that you see here, using color or images, renderized 3D imaging to explain as easily as possible all the requirements that are established. We include photographs to point out what must and must not be done in this case, to prepare the surface of an concrete element to be jacketed. These are 4 new documents in Spanish, both for the evaluation and retrofitting of buildings. The intermediate evaluation guide can be used to do pre-seismic evaluations, even when there is no earthquake that has happened. And this methodology is based on identifying the most likely types of failures that can happen in structural elements, the impact that they can have in the stories, identifying the most critical story, and to prioritize the mechanism that can take place, the plastic mechanism related to those failures, either an important failure in columns or in beams or any other element, masonry, steel, the most common failures. And you can see on your screen the address, the websites where you can download and consult these documents, and also the websites of INIFED and the Engineering Institute at unam.gov.mx. So these are the documents that are now available for your consultation and download starting now.